It's time to talk about welding safety. Most of what I'm going to cover right now would cover MIG welding, TIG welding, stick welding, some aluminum spool gun welding. So the safety equipment is very similar for all those different types of welding. One of the things that I'd like to start off with is just really thinking about how important it is to protect yourself while you're welding and the implications it could have on your future if you don't do a good job with this. A good example, I think, is just think about some of the other things you like to do. For example, if you are into sports and if you get a bad burn on your hand, so to speak, you might not be able to throw a football. You might not be able to catch a baseball. You might not be able to kick a soccer ball if you have burned your foot. So there's all these different things that could happen that would affect you later on, and I need you to really take your safety serious in the welding class. So I've had students in the past who do not do a good job with that, and they need to be reminded constantly, and they're just a liability to our class, and eventually I have to remove them from class or remove them from taking a class again in this room. So it is a responsibility that we all have, and we have to do a really good job with that, because once the accident happens, you can't go back in time, and it's happened, and it's really unfortunate. So we have to be smart, we have to use some common sense, and we have to do a really good job all the time. And we have to just really buy into this and help me out with this. It makes my day a lot better when my students are safe, and it cuts down on my stress level when they are not, acting crazy and doing goofy things and forgetting their safety glasses and things like that. So let's talk about gloves. Lots of different gloves you could wear while you're welding, but some are better than others. This is probably your best glove for welding. Really thick leather glove. It has a long cuff and that you can tuck under your coat, inside your coat, because you don't want the sparks to go in this way. So this is probably one of the best. The bad thing about this glove is it doesn't have a lot of dexterity. So it is a little bit harder to do a good job with the hands-on skill with a glove this big and bulky. Now they make these in different sizes. You could get one that fits your hand a little bit better. A lot of the ones we have laying around are kind of a one-size-fits-all glove. Now you'll notice that this person's been carrying around the hot metal with this glove, and the fingers don't bend anymore. So it's really important that we take this glove, and it's dirty from carrying around metal, but you can still bend the fingers good. It doesn't, they still work. So it's really important that we don't carry hot metal with the gloves. The hot metal should stay in the welding booth until it cools down. If it leaves the welding booth, you could carry it with some pliers, but we're trying not to be carrying around, metal that's 2,000 degrees, because you bump somebody, you bump the curtains, all those things get damaged, and it affects everything. So it'd be great if you could just leave the welds in the booth until they cool down. Remember, we're welding in most cases at over 2,000 degrees, and even though it cools off rapidly, it is too hot to handle the welds. So then we have this glove. This is a glove you definitely can't, at this point you can't be touching the hot metal, okay? This gives you better dexterity, and it will protect you really well from the sparks. The sparks don't usually go through the glove, but it's not quite as good as the last one, but you can do some welding in this if you're mindful of what you're doing and if you need some more dexterity. So this is kind of the next step up. And then we have, this is more of a work glove, okay? And there's several different kinds of work gloves, but these ones have a little bit more mesh, so a hot spark can go right through this. And there's mesh right here, hot spark can go right through this. This is kind of the next level down. It's great for working with metal. It's going to protect you from a lot of abrasions and things like that, but it's not really going to do the trick for while you're welding. You want to always inspect the gloves for holes and rips in them, and if they are, I would not wear that glove. Then we have, this is kind of like a rubber work glove. This would not be a good glove to use when you're welding, because if you get a bad spark in here or accidentally forget and grab some hot metal, it would burn this metal, or this, not metal, it would burn this rubber and stick to your finger. So anything that's plastic or even some of the cheaper gloves are made out of a polyester that will melt and stick to your hand. So it's really important that you're using gloves that are made for welding, designed for welding. And I mean, a lot of times they say this is Hobart, that's a welding company. You know, sometimes they'll say Lincoln on them. They might say, even though this one says Miller, this is like more of a work glove. So you kind of have to be careful with that. So having a nice pair of gloves that you can take care of, keep them in a locker so you're not losing them, it just makes a huge difference. You're trying to remember that that metal is going to be hot for several seconds later. So just keeping it out of your touch is really going to make a great improvement on your safety level. The next thing I want to bring up is safety glasses. So the safety glasses, even though we're going to wear a welding helmet, the safety glasses are still part of this. And they need to be on underneath your welding helmet, because when they're not, you tend to forget, and you're always tipping your welding helmet up, right? Always tipping your welding helmet up. And sometimes the welds, you know, that hot metal can pop later on, and then a piece of molten metal will get in your eye. So it's really important that we're wearing safety glasses under the welding helmets. And I know that seems like maybe overkill, but it's not. And if you were working in industry, they would require you wearing safety glasses under the welding helmet. And that's what we really have to do in here. Because as soon as you flip up the welding helmet, you know, you're not the only one in here working, and something could be, a projectile could be going across the room or whatever, and it could get in your eyes. So safety glasses under the welding helmet is huge. Let's talk about welding helmets for a minute. There's a lot of different kinds of welding helmets. This one's an auto darkening welding helmet. It has this little sensor up here, and that has the sensors right here, and then this is a solar panel to help recharge the batteries. So the welding helmets are, the auto darkening ones are newer technology. Okay, when I first started welding, this was not available. They're really nice. The price has dropped a lot more now on them. The bigger one, the ones that have bigger screens, viewfinders, they're going to be more expensive than the smaller ones. But you're really trying not to drop the auto darkening helmets, because they will break really easy, and it doesn't take much to shatter that glass on the inside. So the nice thing about auto darkening, when you look through them, it's going to be green. So I don't know if I can even show you this, but it's going to be green, and then as soon as you strike an arc, it's going to turn dark. So now the bad thing is, sometimes when the batteries start going out, or if someone's dropped it and it's not working right, you'll go to weld and it'll stay green, it won't turn black, and then it's going to be really bright. So if you're ever using one of these and you're like, whoa, why is it so bright? There's a couple reasons why it might not be working right. The first one is it has a dial on the side that changes it from different shades, plus it has a grinding mode. So you want to make sure it's not on the grinding mode. You want to change it to a shade. The good shades for MIG welding are 10 to 13 weld shades. So if this is set too low, it's not going to protect your eyes very much. There's sensitivity changes too. So you want to turn this to where the sensitivity is high, and you want to turn this to where the delay is low. You want the delay to kick on the welding helmet to work almost right away. So there are a couple settings that might not be right. And the other thing, maybe the batteries are dead. Some of these have changeable batteries, or maybe it's been broken. So those are the reasons why the auto darkening helmet wouldn't work. So a lot of my kids love the auto darkening helmets. I do too. They're a great tool, but remember, they're not required. Okay, a good welder should be able to weld good with or without an auto darkening helmet. Then we have, these are some non-auto darkening helmets. So this one's always dark. So if I look through this right now, it's gonna be very black until I strike an arc. So this one has a big screen. This one has a small screen. So those are the differences here. So obviously this will be cheaper, more expensive. Same thing, this glass can break still. So if it gets dropped on the ground, the glass, or the lens they call it, could be broken. So it's really important that we want to keep these in the best shape as possible. Don't lay them on the floor. Try not to set them at edge of tables. Always hang them up. I want to look in here to make sure there's no light seeping through. So I hold this up and I look through there, and I want to make sure that there's no light breaking through around the edges. If that's the case, this lens isn't on very good, and I need to get that repaired or replaced before I start doing my welds. So it's good to look over your equipment before you actually weld with it. That's a really key part of welding. So let's cover upper body. I like to wear a real welding coat, okay? We have a couple different ones laying around. We have some of the older green ones, and we have a couple of these blue ones or black ones. You could wear a jean jacket. So some people like to use Carhartt coats. I don't think Carhartt coats are great because they get a little hot and some of the pockets aren't designed for welding. But if you look at this welding coat, see how the pockets are on the inside, so that way you're not getting weld splatter or weld sparks inside your pocket, because that could create a fire, you know, while you're using this. It has kind of like a nice collar that goes up pretty far, and then it has some snaps, and the cuffs are, you know, they're kind of closer to your body, and that works really, they work really well. So you might want to grab a welding coat, and you know, having your own welding coat would be really nice for the class. They're not that expensive, like $20, $25, and that way you could keep it in a locker, and you could really, I mean, we don't wash our welding coats in here, so once you pick out a coat, if you can keep it in your locker, that would be great. That way, you know, it just makes things more sanitary, and we're not sharing as many things and things like that. So, you know, it'd be a good investment if you think you're into, you know, the trades at all. Having a nice work coat laying around would be, you know, great to have anyway. So you don't want to weld in short sleeves, because you'll get the UV lights the UV radiation off the welding will burn you, and it's not a pleasant burn. Like some people think, oh, it'd be like going to the tanner. It's not like going to the tanner, okay? You don't do a bunch of welding to prepare for spring break. It's going to scorch your skin, and it's going to be, you're going to have like, it's just going to be red, okay? It's going to be like that sunburn red, and then it peels, and then you're back to white. So it's not a pleasant thing, okay? Getting welding burn is not a pleasant thing, all right? And welding burn with your eyes, you have to be super conscious of that. You know, I always want you to wear your helmet, even when you're doing your tack welds. If you, I know a couple people I know did some welding without a helmet. I don't know why. And what happens is it burns the outer layer of your skin on your eyeball. It dies, it kills it. And then the next day you wake up and you can't open your eyes because all this dead skin is plugging up your eye. And sometimes you'll get seizures. Some people will vomit. When I was in high school, I know a kid that welded without a helmet for a long time, and he left school that day vomiting, and he didn't even make it back to school for like 2 or 3 days. So it's something we really have to take serious, and if you're not going to take it serious, then I have to have you removed from class, because from where we're at, welding is 10 times brighter than the sun, and it is definitely something we have to take very serious. So I like to wear jeans next. You know, jeans are a work pant. You don't want to wear any athletic pants like the sweatpants or the, you know, the smooth kind of running pants or anything like that, the workout pants, because they will catch on fire, okay? Some of them are made out of a lot of plastic, which will melt your skin. And one time a girl was welding on some sweatpants, and both her legs caught on fire. All the fuzz burned off her pants or sweatpants, and then luckily the fire went out on its own, but she was super freaked out, man. Her sweatpants went from like pink to black, and she was having some real mental anxiety after that because she looked down and saw both of her legs on fire for a couple seconds. So a real serious thing. You know, I've always been telling my kids not to weld with sweatpants, but some kids just ignore what the teacher tells them to do, and they make poor decisions. So please help me out with that. You gotta weld with jeans on. So we have a couple of jeans around, loaners, but it'd be nice if you could bring in your own pair. You can put in a locker. I mean, this could be something you pick up at Goodwill. They don't have to be, you know, amazing jeans. You don't want jeans with big holes in them though, because the big holes, all the frays, you know, they could catch on fire. Plus it's not gonna protect you if you have holes in them, right? So you need some jeans that don't have the pockets hanging out with the big holes. We need some jeans that cover your skin, you know, all the way. Now let's go on to footwear. Footwear is a big thing, and I have a hard time with kids in their flip-flops and their Crocs and things like that. I know it's much more comfortable to be in school in loose, open-face shoes, but we can't wear those in this class. So this is a huge problem I have with my students. I don't know why it has to be such a fight, but I'd really appreciate you wear some tennis shoes or work boots, something that's going to cover your whole foot. Now, tennis shoes aren't great. Let me show you this tennis shoe right here. This is a work grade tennis shoe, and it has steel toed in there, so that's great. If you drop something on your foot, it's going to protect your toes. and it has it's like a leather base to it. So this is like a little bit of a work boot tennis shoe. Now you could still have a little bit of a problem here if you get a spark in there, but it's really going to do a pretty good job protecting your foot around this location. And then if I pull my pant leg over this, it's going to keep sparks and molten metal from going down into the edges. So what a lot of people don't realize with welding, I mean, the sparks are one thing, but when you get a pop of molten metal, that's where you have a much bigger problem, right? So now if I look at this tennis shoe, it has all this mesh. This mesh does not hold up good to molten metal or sparks. It will go right through this, right into your sock, and then right into your foot. So like the running shoes are not great for welding. I would not recommend that for welding. Anything that has a mesh or doesn't protect your foot from the molten metal is not a great choice in a welding booth, all right? But it's still better than the Crocs and the flip-flops, but I would prefer that you not use those. If you want to use these shoe covers to help protect your tennis shoes, this would be something you could put over that running shoe that I just showed you. This isn't something that's supposed to go over the Crocs, okay? These are still not, like this flips up a little bit and the spark gets in there and it will, you know, still burn your foot if you're wearing Crocs. So that's not gonna cut it for Crocs, but it would help a pair of tennis shoes like I just showed you. That would help. So we have two different types of shoe covers. I don't like wearing these. I don't know how my students can wear these, but some of them can. I don't find them really that comfortable, and I'd rather just bring a pair of work boots or you know, a nice pair of tennis shoes for this that have really nice leather fronts like I just showed you. Some of the basketball shoes are a little better. They have a little more leather on them, so that's a little bit better of a choice, but we're just trying to go with that. So that would really be great if you could help me out with some of those items on it's called PPE, personal protection equipment. So we're trying to prepare our bodies for welding, and it's very key that we just take these couple parts serious and have the right gear. So we're trying to get all that together so we can start practicing these MIG welds. The other thing we need to think about is earplugs. So, you know, metal tech can be very loud. You can use those push-in earplugs or the ear muffs, and I will provide the push-in ones and the ear muffs. So if you need to borrow those, we have those. You can keep the push-in ones. I'd rather you not get a new pair every day because it costs too much, but if I give you some push-ins and you could use them for like a week or something, that would be great. But it's really important that you wear ear protection when you're welding and do a lot of grinding and cutting. So now you might have heard me say that, like ear protection while you're welding. And that is kind of, well, welding isn't super loud. Like, why do you need ear protection when welding? And for me is getting a spark in my ear. I don't want to get a spark in my ear. And I've had a couple sparks in my ear in my experience welding, and it is terrible. And I think both of the times that happened, I was just really getting into my welds and I was really enjoying what I was doing. And I was probably I was really tilting my head. So if I have the helmet on, I'm really tilting my head, you know, to get the right angle, I could have a spark go into my ear. So if you're welding vertical like this and you have the helmet on properly, your ears are gonna be fine. It's when you're doing some, you know, really interesting angle welds, or if you're doing overhead welds or something like that, you could have an issue getting a spark in your ear. I'll tell you, it's super painful getting a spark in your ear, and I thought I was gonna have permanent hearing damage, but I got lucky. So a lot of times if I'm if I'm welding with a lot of angles or really involved welding, I'll put ear protection in my ears to help protect that. Other things, you know, you're not supposed to have cell phones in your pockets, things like that, because they have the lithium batteries in there. You're just trying to keep anything that could be flammable off your body while you're welding. So anything you can do to help out with that, long necklaces, jewelry, all that should be taken off for metal tech especially, or covered. The hoodies, those are a terrible thing to wear in a welding booth. Anything with a hood that can trap you know, debris or molten metal is a terrible idea. We do have some little caps for the hair You know, if the cap isn't on right and you get a spark that nests into the cap, it's gonna melt through and then it's gonna burn your head anyway. So a lot of times I don't protect my hair. I'm just wearing this welding helmet, and then this covers some of it. And I have had a couple sparks get into my hair, and it is uncomfortable. So if you need to cover your hair, you just got to think about how you're covering your hair. You want it to be something that's not going to actually trap more sparks or more molten metal in there and allow it to burn. So if I get a spark right now, you know, it just goes in, it like, you know, might burn a couple hairs, and then it hits my scalp, and it's usually small enough because you know, the gravity will take the big sparks down. So it's usually a small spark, and yeah, it's uncomfortable, but usually it's fine in the next, you know, within the next day. It's not anything that's going to send me to the hospital. But you know, if you had like a cap on, like a ball cap or whatever, and that spark lands on there, starts burning the cap, and then melts through the cap, and then now you have like molten plastic falling on your hair that could burn your scalp. That's going to be a lot more serious than just that little spark that got on there. So I don't know, it's just one of those things you gotta be careful with. But I usually do not wear any hats or anything under my welding helmet, and I've had, you know, real good luck with not burning my head severely. So, you know, over the years I've had great luck with welding. I haven't had many bad burns because I wear the gloves, because I wear the helmet, and I take it serious. So safety is not an accident, because you are prepared and you're doing what's right. You're using some good common sense.